Porges' groundbreaking polyvagal theory. She also happens to be the author of multiple best-selling works from W. Norton, including the Polyvagal Theory and Therapy, Polyvagal Exercises for Safety and Connection, Polyvagal Practices, the Polyvagal Flip Chart, and the Polyvagal Card Deck, just to name a few. She trains therapists around the world in how to bring a polyvagal approach into their clinical practice, and also works with agencies and larger systems to explore how to incorporate a polyvagal perspective. Courtney Rolfe is a licensed psychotherapist, speaker, and trainer who is passionate about bringing polyvagal theory to clinicians and wellness professionals across the globe. In addition to being a speaker and a trainer, Courtney offers individual and group consultation for helping professionals, supporting healers and helpers to bring the wisdom of the nervous system into their work, which is what polyvagal theory is all about. Please leave your questions for Deb and Courtney in the chat. We're going to try to answer as many as we can, and I will jump back on in about a half hour to start to field some of the questions to Deb and Courtney. Also want to let everyone know that in the chat, there will be a 20% off and free shipping link for US customers, this discount, to purchase the Polyvagal Prompts. Sorry for the little blur there, but and that discount we're also extending to all of our polyvagal offerings. So also in the chat, there'll be a link to our polyvagal bookshelf, the Polyvagal Theory webpage, which has all of the aforementioned Deb Dana titles I've mentioned, and also other works by Stephen Porges and others. So take advantage of that. Or better yet, go to your local bookstore and purchase Deb and Courtney's Polyvagal Prompts and Deb's other works and Dr. Stephen Porges' works while you're at it. So thanks again, everyone, for joining us today. We're really excited to hear from Deb and Courtney. And without further ado, I give you Deb Dana and Courtney Rolfe in conversation about Polyvagal Prompts.
Thanks, Kevin. That was lovely. Very lovely. Yeah. Hi, Courtney.
Hi, Deb.
We have not talked except for briefly connecting a few minutes ago since we got this thing done, which felt like a Herculean task, didn't it?
It was a lot of chunks of time. We spent a lot of time together, and then things needed to process, and then came back together. So yeah, it's been a journey with this one.
Yeah. I do. I love when Kevin was holding it up, and I'll hold it up because don't you love it? It just is. It's beautifully designed. I love it. I love holding it. I love opening it and kind of feeling it, which to me is the joy of a print book, right? You get to hold it, you get to feel it and write in it and make it work. So yeah,
those little open spaces are so inviting, right? So one of the first things I've heard is people deliberating, I don't want to write in it. It's so pretty. I don't want to mess it up. And
I know.
Just write in it.
Please write in it. Yes, please
get another later if you want to do the whole thing all over again. But
just
write in it. Yeah.
So I wondered if you could start by leading us off on sort of the origin story of this lovely book and your idea that started this all.
Yeah, I think the origin story has to start with that first training I took that you gave in 2017. When I'm a psychotherapist, right? And so I remember going in to learn polyvagal theory, which I'd come across through, if you work with trauma, you come across polyvagal theory. But that workshop with you was my colleague Dara and I, we left just with our jaws on the ground thinking, well, what did we just learn? And what do we have to unlearn now, to understand people through the nervous system. So that's when it, I think even that week started bringing it into work with clients and start, I kind of just tell people, I'll share with you everything I know and, try to give you what I know. And so we can be on the same page and with the same language. And it was in that it was so powerful to bring in with clients, and people can grab on to these ideas and the framework and really understand it in their own experience. And so at some point, anything to help people strengthen their lens how do I read? Because I think I spend a lot of time as a therapist reframing, right? Okay, this thing happened. Here's all the narrative. This is the thing, the arc, the whatever. But then how do we reframe it through the nervous system? And so that's when I realized, like, what can we do to create continuity, in between when I'm not there, so that people can really kind of strengthen that lens on their own. So that was the birth of the idea.
I love it. And you brought it to me and said, what do you think? And I think I said, yeah, you should do a journal. And then we moved on to, we could do something together, because it really deserved more than a self-published, small little thing.
You could,
right?
See the original ideas. I was saying earlier, I'm so glad you saved me from that path.
Yeah, no, let's not do that.
More beautiful.
Yeah, and then of course, Deborah at Norton, Deborah Malmo was so wonderful and saying, yes, this is a great idea. It has a home here. Let's do it. And I'm not sure, when I started, at least I realized how long it was going to take to organize. However, I don't know however many prompts we decided we were going to do, but we were probably very enthusiastic and said, oh, let's do a couple hundred prompts. How hard can that be? Oh my. It's hard work to, because of course we wanted the prompts to be inviting of the befriending process, but we also wanted to have some context for each of them. So then it involved writing a piece around, why are you doing this? Why is this important? And then the prompt afterwards. So
that's when it went away from no longer a journal and into a new undefined land at that point.
Right. Which I love, because I do love the teaching piece that goes along with each of these prompts. I think is important, and in a very welcoming way. Right. I think one of my fond memories was, sitting here in Chicago, in my Chicagoland home, is where I did a lot of this work, and papers all over the place, and rearranging and this. And I remember you came because you were in Chicago at the time, and you came out, and we sat at the dining room table next to each other, scribbling things down, and I'm not sure wherever that ever went, whether we threw it all out and started over, but it was a really lovely day to just be side by side working on this book together, and finding prompts, and brainstorming, and what do you think about music, and how would you bring this, and all those things.
That was such a fun part of it, right? Like all the different, okay, what angle have we not explored yet? What's another angle? What's another, something that's going to speak to somebody else that maybe isn't represented yet, or just continuing to find what are all the ways. And we probably are just at the tip of the iceberg with all the different ways we can think about and reflect on our nervous system experience.
Yeah, I think there are probably many that didn't make the cut to going into this book for whatever reason, but there's so many different ways to be with your nervous system and learn from it. And but that was sort of a special, that's a day that I remember from that. And I remember it was hard to organize, right?
It was a lot of
Are there categories? Is there a I think we did end up with some sort of a sequence a bit, but
there's a progression that ended up being in place, that we had organized them for the sake of sanity. Let's just I think I do remember that being part of the process, because I think it had just been boom, 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 just throw it all out there. And then at some point, wait a second, what do we have for, this section or that section? Let's categorize these a little bit so we know what we're working with. And so then there became some order. And then I think in my mind, I was thinking, we'll just scatter them at the end anyway. We're going to randomize the whole thing, because it's a prompt journal. They're all invitations you enter in where you want in the book. Doesn't matter. But then we saw that there was a flow that had kind of just naturally. So I think we still did some rearranging within the sections, but they really do kind of build off each other, which was a beautiful outcome that
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It wasn't planned, but it ended
No.
up being
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
Yeah. For everybody who's listening, or who will listen at some point, not planned is sort of those words go well with with this polyvagal prompts, right? We're just going to be a journal, too many words. Became polyvagal prompts. Didn't quite know how to organize it. And I got to give Deborah credit for saying, take a quote,
Yeah, that was
one of
big.
your quotes, and then put it with a prompt. And it
Yeah.
was like, oh, okay, that sort of anchors it. So, I love having
Mhm.
people who can see the design, the layout, and give you a suggestion.
Mhm.
And then that was easy to do once we knew that. I think, well, I had the easy job. I just collected quotes from my writings. You matched them to prompts, which was
It was like a
fun.
game. It was like a 3-day paper everywhere game.
Mhm.
Like match the quote
Right,
with the prompts.
right,
But
right.
it was really amazing how well,
Yeah.
I mean, I was bewildered half the time. Like, oh my gosh, this couldn't be more perfect
Mhm.
for this prompt that already existed.
Right.
And then, yeah, some of them just were so perfect.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it felt really, really nice and harmonious
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
quickly in that
Yeah.
process.
And it was nice for me because we wrote the prompts first, and then to find a quote
Mhm.
that matched and was like, oh, we are continuing to deepen the work, which is
Yeah.
what we started, wanting to give
Yep.
people a way to deepen, the work that we're inviting people to move into when they
Yeah.
explore polyvagal theory. So yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right.
So
Which kind of, is another, I think, important part about what we held in our vision, which is we want this to be both accessible for
mhm,
anyone,
mhm,
right? And we want this to be helpful to those really in it already,
yeah,
who have done all the trainings or the hours or read all the books or found, whatever education online and are doing that nervous system work, that it's
mhm,
also going to benefit them. And
yeah,
I think that's what we've done,
yeah,
right? It's an
yeah,
invitation to everybody to deepen,
yes,
to enter into the work or deepen
yes,
their
yeah,
work.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I agree. I think that is what this does. I have, people will say, I don't know polyvagal theory, but I can move into this and get to know my nervous system. And other people,
Hmm.
just find the joy going deeper because, oh, I know that, but this is a different way to look at it.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
polyvagal specifically, I think there's so many layers to it. There's so much depth in it
Yeah.
that even as someone who, I've been training from you with you, years and years now, from Dr. Porges, from, all this, but I continue to find
Mm. Yeah.
ahas and surprise and learnings about myself and my nervous system. And it feels like, a life's work journey,
Yeah.
that it's not a one and done. Oh, I understand how the nervous system works. There are so many layers to our
Yeah.
experience that
Yeah. Yeah.
there's ongoing exploration.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I keep
Yeah.
bumping into my places of new understanding, right? It's like, oh, that
Yeah.
felt new and different. Let me spend some time there.
Right.
Because I think it's that two-layer experience that you understand the nervous system, like how the nervous system works, which is what
Right.
Steve's amazing work, gives us the organizing
Yeah.
principles and all the ways to understand the science. And then we understand our nervous system, which is
Yeah.
what polyvagal prompts is hoping, to lead people towards. To now that you know the science, how does your nervous system work, right?
Well,
So
that's why people
yeah.
gravitate toward your, especially
Mm,
your live
mm,
work so much and
mm,
your trainings and
yeah.
things, because it's really an invitation to, yes, we could
Mhm,
understand this intellectually. Of course,
mhm,
that's important to
mhm.
understand some of the technical of
Right,
what we're
right,
doing here.
yes. Yeah,
But
yeah,
I think you have been able to really invite people into that tuning in, and that, and tuning in is really hard for a lot of us, right?
mhm,
Like, especially
mhm,
any trauma history, and it
mhm,
can be hard to tune in. And
yeah,
so,
yeah,
you've found ways to really invite people into that curiosity that's safe enough you
Yeah.
know, so I think
Yeah,
this is
which is I think what the prompts do, make it safe enough, right?
Mhm.
And if you open the book and you open to a prompt and you think your nervous system says, oh, maybe not, just close the book and open it to another prompt,
Yeah, you get
right?
to honor that.
There's right, honor the wisdom of your system saying,
Right.
no, I can't go there today, but the next one I open, oh, I could do that. I think that's the
Yeah.
joy of the prompts, is that there's a prompt that
Yeah.
will work for me on any given day, right? And not all of them will on any day, which,
Mhm.
is a perfectly natural, normal human experience. So,
Mhm.
to sort of open it up and see what pulls me today,
Yeah.
right? I know
Yeah.
music is big for you, and you had fun writing working on the music
Mhm.
prompts. And there's some days when I want to go right to the music prompts, and other days
Yeah.
it's no, thank you, not today. Today I'm
Yeah.
going to go to nature instead, or
Yeah.
whatever that is. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think there's an invitation to go as far as you can with each of them too, right?
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
to even just in the reflection process.
Yes.
Yeah, I feel like I want to look at
I know, I'm
some of
looking at
them
my
now.
book going, because when you said that, I loved it because we had like a one, and then we had to go deeper, and it became taking it a step
Yeah.
further.
Did we come up with that? Did Deborah give us that prompt? She was a real cheerleader in this for
She
us,
really helped with that. I
right?
think we came up with I think we had a
The
few different
extra step.
phrases, and we
Mhm.
weren't quite sure what we wanted to call it, but I do love taking it a
Take
step,
it a step further.
right?
Yeah.
And most of them have a taking it a step further, which I think again
Mhm.
is that invitation, right? The first one
Yeah.
is sort of a, getting to know, and then if you feel like going deeper
Yeah.
today with this prompt, taking it a step further. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't remember how that language actually came to be, but I do love it.
Right.
I
And I
think
love that they're all just invitations.
yes.
It's
Yes.
not a requirement. It's not a get through one prompt or one page a day. It's not
No,
it's
right.
all just like, what if you
Right.
do this? How would that
Right.
feel? If you reflected
Yeah,
on this
yeah.
piece.
Which again is honoring the way the nervous system works, right? If it feels invited,
Mhm.
then we can engage. But if it feels like there's a demand or a should or a have
Yeah.
to, we then feel forced, and we'll go into,
Mhm.
our survival response, whether that's
Right.
sympathetic or dorsal, we'll
Yeah.
enter into that place. And then I may power through and do a prompt, but I don't learn anything from it. I don't get anything from it. And, so we wanted people to really feel it's an invitation,
Mhm.
right? Maybe
Yeah.
today, maybe not today.
Tune into that curiosity.
Mhm, mhm,
Right.
mhm.
It's a bunch of prompts to help us get curious.
Right, right. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. How do you
Mhm.
anchor in enough ventral so that you can then explore, what else is happening? So, but I love finding joy, finding connection and joy, right? That's, that lovely
Yeah.
experience. Connection is what we all need in the world, and it's
Mm.
kind of hard to find sometimes nowadays, isn't it? The safe connection.
Mhm.
So finding
Mhm.
connection and joy, right?
Yeah.
Those ventral experiences that nourish us and help us find
Right.
well-being. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Better understanding the pathways that
Mhm.
open
Mhm.
up those experiences to
Mhm.
us.
Mhm.
And better understanding the things that maybe kind of get in the way
Yes.
or pull us
Yes.
out of that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's
Yeah.
part of it too, right? And that feels it's not it's not all ventral in this
Mm.
book,
Mm.
right? We
Right.
invite readers to take a look at those survival states, and
Yep.
those
Yep.
too can be pretty scary for
Right.
folks before that relationship and that befriending process happens.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
sympathetic can feel really scary, dorsal can feel really scary.
Mhm.
And
Mm.
so, hopefully people are able to start getting curious even about
Mhm.
the experiences
Mhm.
they may otherwise want to avoid or
Right. Right.
tend to be afraid of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. To begin to get to know the protective response of our survival strategies.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the prompts I think is like writing words of appreciation to a survival state.
Yeah.
I love that
Yeah. Yeah.
concept
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
because that's when you've started to get some of that flip
Mhm.
in
Mhm.
your paradigm, right?
Mhm.
That
Mhm.
um you're not looking at some of the disruptive patterns and the outcomes of a nervous
Right.
system that's in a survival state. You're looking at, wow,
Yeah. Yeah.
look at that protection that my system has offered me. Yes, it's disruptive, but wow, what a system that's here for my protection, my survival.
Yeah.
Right? So to shift that relationship with our own nervous system responses is it's such a good place to be.
So do you have a copy of the book with you?
I do.
Yeah. So, all right. Open it up to any prompt and let's see what
Any
you get.
prompt.
Any
Okay.
prompt. What do you get?
All right. This is like tarot cards or something.
Uh-huh.
Whichever one you land on is meant to be.
Whichever one is the right one. What do you get?
All right. So I'll read the quote first.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I've got beneath the level of conscious awareness, our nervous system directs our movement toward and away from people, places, and experiences. So that's our quote. Before the brain can put feelings and thoughts into language, the nervous system initiates a response that moves us toward an experience and into connection, takes us into the mobilizing protection of fight or flight, or rescues us from the shutdown through shutdown and disconnection. So when we tune into our nervous system, we bring awareness to this otherwise non-conscious experience. Oh, that was kind of a doozy one to
Yeah, you
jump
picked a
into,
good one.
right?
What's the prompt?
So the prompt is, what is your nervous system state in this moment?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're in ventral, take a moment to tune into your embodied sense of regulation and connection.
Mm-hmm.
If you're in sympathetic or dorsal, what is a regulating resource you can bring to help you move up the ladder? So even just like, being on the spot, right? But I'll read a prompt, having to read in front of people. I can feel my sympathetic. I can feel it right here. Feel that energy.
Yeah.
So I know my system, and I'm just going to put the book down a second.
Yep.
Take a nice breath, connect back in.
Yeah.
We're reading our
and
book.
Here you are again. Right. With your book. I love it. I love it. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Let me see what I get. I would get not that one.
And there is a follow-up.
Oh, is there a going deeper? What's the take a step further?
There's a step further. So the step further is to create a list of things that you would do to move up the ladder when you're pulled into sympathetic or dorsal protection. Make a list for each survival state, then make a list of the ways that you can strengthen your ventral experience when you're anchored in regulation.
Nice.
So then you're, invited to reach for your list when you find yourself in a survival state or when you want to deepen your sense of regulation, right? Because it's not just about getting back up the ladder to ventral, it's about expanding our capacity for ventral.
Right.
So here it says, remember, you've already created the list. Now you just need to choose something to try. That is such an important sentence, right?
It is. Yep. Yep. Yeah, because when we're in it, we don't have access to our prefrontal capacities. But if I've already created the list, I've preloaded it, I can then look at it and go, oh, right. Take a breath.
It's because how stressful is that to be in a survival state and feel like I don't know what to do, right? And so we do the work when we're in ventral. We do the work when we have access to our brain, our thinking part of our brain.
Right.
And then we have an easy go-to. And sometimes I'll tell folks, just point your finger at a thing and start there.
Right. Yep. You've made the menu. Just throw the dart, point, try it, see what happens. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I love that it gets to be a big menu, right? All sorts of things we can.
Oh, it can be a faceted menu. It can have many hues of color in the menu. There's
absolutely
a lot of ways to organize the menu.
Yeah. I love it. Yeah. All right. See what I get.
Okay. It's your tarot, your prompt.
Oh goodness. Let's see. Oof. Every nervous system is created with a ventral vagal pathway. Our biology includes this wired-in pathway of safety and connection. No matter how challenging our lives are, we can come home to safety.
Yeah, right.
This one's about solitude. Solitude is a regulating and nourishing experience of choosing to be alone and feeling a sense of peace in that aloneness. Having a sense of connection does not always mean we are surrounded by other people. A moment of solitude creates an experience of feeling centered and present. So where in your environment can you find a place of solitude? Look for places where you feel a connection to self the world, or spirit, and when you are on your own. Find your way to those places and experiment with how much time there meets your need for solitude. Mm.
Yeah.
This is a good one for me because my system is wired more towards solitude than social. I have these lovely places that I can sit and be and feel surrounded in safety and just be in solitude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and such an important practice to take a moment to identify those, right? Kind of a similar idea of like, well, when I have a sense that I need some solitude or it's time for that, or even if I don't, not that I have a sense of it, but I know that overall I need to prioritize solitude, right? To, regenerate energy or recoup or whatever, where am I going to go? Can I figure that out?
Yeah.
Some options ahead of time, and yeah.
I think it's interesting to discern solitude from lonely, right? Because solitude is nourishing and lonely is depleting. And so where are the places where I feel nourished?
Right.
On my own, right? I think that's and the nervous system needs some of that. Everybody needs some of that, and some of us more than others. And so to have those places is important. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think when I think of solitude, I think of those other channels of connection, right? The connection is not just to other folks, but connection to the earth, to spirit, to connection to myself, where I really feel in my body, in tune, in harmony, just with my own self, right?
Yeah.
Nourishing just to find the spaces where we can really tune into that.
Yeah. When you were just saying to the earth, I was thinking, place of solitude for me is sitting by the ocean, and just the sound of the waves just takes me deep into my own, inner world, which is such a place of solitude. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. So sort of a couple prompts that people can get a flavor of what happens when they open the book. And if you open the book and think, oh, I don't want to do solitude today, just close it and open it somewhere else. It's perfectly fine. That's sort of a normal response, right? Yeah.
And I think each time you can, write the stuff down if it feels okay. And if it feels okay just to sit and reflect. And I'm really liking too how, we can reflect on the quote, we can reflect on the context, and then we've got the actual prompts to do something with, and so if it feels good just to reflect, then that's helpful too.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes, and I know, they're my words, so I'm fond of them, but sometimes I will just read a quote and that's it. That's enough for me in the moment. And, for me, it comes along with a lot of memories of, when I wrote it, where it came from, but it's that's all I need. I don't need to go further. And then other times
like
it's
a little nudge.
Yeah. I was telling you earlier, I gave this to my 12-year-old granddaughter who's just starting to play around with it. And I'm curious to have her, share some of her writing with me when she wants to, because it's an interesting way to get to know people, right? Through their nervous system and through how the nervous system is speaking to them. So, I will be curious to see what her nervous system says and what she writes down. Yeah.
Oh, that would be nice to find out too.
Yeah. So I think it's interesting for people to hear the story of how it came to be, and I love that it is this beautifully organized and designed book that came out of lots of different pieces of paper and spreadsheets and emails and all of this stuff going back and forth between Chicago and Chicago suburb and Maine and all over
Virginia.
the place. And then came to be this. It's it was a lovely journey to get there. So I hope people will.
And a fun project, a really fun
It was
project.
A fun project.
Yeah.
There were moments it wasn't so fun, just gotta say. There are
Yeah.
moments when it felt a little overwhelming, like I'm drowning
Workload.
in prompts and I don't know what to say and how to say it. And but yes, it was a fun project to do, and
Yeah.
and something that I think people will enjoy
Yeah.
using. And I hope people will send us, they can email us and tell us their favorite prompt or
Mhm.
what they discovered. I love getting those emails. I get those emails a lot
Yeah.
from people who've, read something or taken something, and you probably do too, and say, "Ooh, this is how it landed."
Mhm.
Because
Which
when
is so
you,
good to know. Everybody's so different,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Everyone's
yeah,
nervous system
yeah,
is so that's one of the biggest things I've ever taken away from your work in general
yeah,
is we can't assume
no,
about somebody else's nervous system. We really need to get curious
mm,
moment to moment.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we get curious about our own and then about
Mhm.
others.
Mhm.
There's it could be a lovely book group project, everybody, working on quotes and sharing their quotes,
Mhm.
because sharing is part
Mm.
of the way our nervous system feels safe and okay in the world, right?
Right.
So I do a prompt and then I want to share it with somebody. Who do I share it with?
Yeah. Right.
Find
Right.
a buddy to share it with and go back and forth. Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
nice idea.
Mm, mm. Yeah. I mean, there are lots of ways to get creative with, because the nervous system invites that, right?
Mhm.
There's not just one way to do
Yeah.
anything. Yeah.
If you had a group get together and everybody reflected on the same prompt,
Mm-hmm.
I bet you'd have a lot of variation
Mm-hmm.
in that experience.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah,
Mm.
absolutely. Yeah. It could be fun. That could be a fun thing to do, couldn't it? Maybe
I
people will
think
do
so.
that.
We
Sounds kind of
should.
fun.
Hi, Deb. Hi, Courtney. I'm back.
You're back.
Hey.
I'm back. That was wonderful. Thank you. And I have some questions. A few questions came in right in the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
and then you sort of addressed them a little bit. But then I thought for
Mhm.
people that came in maybe a little bit later, and you guys were already, deep into it, that just to sort of reframe. So the first one is a very straightforward. What is the book actually about? Bringing things all the way back to the beginning, but maybe to reframe, and then there'll be a question after that that sort of goes along with that. But for someone who has
Mm-hmm.
no idea, maybe knows Deb and Courtney,
Yeah.
what is this
What
about?
is it about? Do you want to take that time or you
I
want
mean,
me to
I would
start?
say it's a way to, do what I call befriending, befriend your nervous system, which is getting to know how your autonomic nervous
Mm.
system works for you on your behalf, and how you
Mhm.
can engage with it to find more moments of regulation and safety. And the prompts, come, as Courtney said beautifully, 3 parts, some 4 parts. The first is a quote, right? A quote from my writing that holds the prompt, and then there's context about what is this prompt going to help you learn, which is under the
Mhm.
quote, right?
Mhm.
And then on the other side actually is the prompt. Right. And so, it comes in that, and some of the prompts have a section that says taking it a step further if you want to dive a little
Mhm.
deeper. But it really is an invitation to get to know how your nervous system is helping you navigate through the world,
Mm.
because the nervous system is at the heart of your everyday
Mm.
experience. It is directing you every moment, micro moment to micro moment. So this is a way to get to know it and partner with it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
The follow-up question to that was, what do you mean exactly by a prompt, and
Ah,
how do I use them?
oh boy.
Mm.
Yeah. So, I mean, it could have been polyvagal prompts, because, we're in the world of polyvagal prompts, and then it goes together, right? It could have been invitations. I mean, they're
Mhm.
autonomic invitations is another way to think about it. Each prompt is an invitation in a specific way to get to know your nervous system, right? And invitation is important, as Courtney said when we were talking. It can't be a demand, right? It can't be a you have to do this, but it's an invitation, and they're all written in a way that is open and welcoming and inviting, which is so important with the nervous system. So, I guess I would say that a prompt is an invitation that gives you a direction to explore a certain aspect of how your nervous system is working.
Deb, can you, for those that may not know, and that number could be small or large, but maybe just give a little bit of clarity about the autonomic hierarchy for those that, as the terms come up, I'm sure that many clinicians know about, but for those attendees who may not be clinicians, because obviously the book is a clinician can use it with a client, a person who's just a lay reader, and dive into the back if they don't know about polyvagal theory, learn about it, and then jump in. So just for those that might not know about the autonomic hierarchy, what exactly that is.
Sure.
What are the elements of that?
Yeah. And we did put there's the autonomic ladder, which is the hierarchy. Yeah. And we did put in the back matter, we put the beginner's guide, and we put a glossary of terms so people can understand it. But the hierarchy is Steve Porges' Steve's brilliant understanding of how the nervous system works. And we have 3 states that we move through in a predictable order, which makes the hierarchy. So ventral, as Courtney and I were talking about, in this book really helps you nourish ventral. Ventral is the top of the hierarchy, so it's the newest part of your nervous system, and it's where you can feel safe enough, organized enough to move through the world in a purposeful way. Right? It's where we experience physical and psychological well-being. The next step down the hierarchy is the first of our survival strategies, which is sympathetic, fight and flight, or anger and anxiety. And once we leave ventral and step into sympathetic survival, our prefrontal cortex works differently, which is why we were saying, if you do the prompts, you get to know your system and begin to build resources to reach for that you can't remember, you can't come up with when you're moved into survival. So you can grab the book and find your menu. So sympathetic, fight and flight. And then the bottom of the hierarchy is the other survival strategy, which is the dorsal vagal collapse, disconnect, disappear, shut down. Right. And the lovely work, that Steve did helps us understand that there is a predictability to this. We move from ventral to sympathetic to dorsal. And so getting to know how these states work for you is important, because if you're in sympathetic, you may come back to ventral or you may go down to dorsal, but you can pre-plan for what needs to happen. You can also find ways to come back to ventral, which I think is probably most of the prompts is understanding how my system has taken me out of regulation and how to get back there. And I just do want to say that ventral is essential for well-being, and nobody is in ventral all the time. So the prompts really help you recognize it's natural and normal to move, out of ventral and get to know sympathetic and dorsal, because we all go there. Every human goes down the ladder and comes back up many, many times a day.
Deb, you mentioned menus, and Amy Levins asks, what are some of the things on your menus, ladies?
What are the menus we've been talking about? We've been talking about menus that move us from survival state up to ventral. That was the first menu I think we talked about. Right.
It's interesting because my menus, and I loved it when Courtney was talking about colors and stuff, because I've had clients, I am not artistic, right? I wish I was, but I've had clients who are beautiful, creatively artistic, and have illustrated their menus, which is so lovely. And I was just having a thought about, an illustrated menu, but my menus really, maybe I'll talk about my ventral, staying in ventral menu, because I think we forget that when we get there, it's nice to stay there a bit, and sometimes it's really hard to get there. And so my ventral menu of what helps me, maybe stay just a little bit longer there includes my cat buddy, who is not here at the moment, but may appear anytime, right? An animal is often there. It involves nature of some sort, and it usually involves some kind of music, right? So, those sorts of, you can think of categories that you can build into your menu, right? Which are people and pets, movement, breathing, nature, these sorts of things. Yeah. Hmm.
When I think one of the most important menus that I've had to build has been my getting out of dorsal menu, which it's interesting, the more I do the work, the less far down the ladder I go, nor, is it scary anymore, but nonetheless, I know what, I'm pretty familiar with my go-tos for, okay, I'm in ventral, feeling really low energy or feeling really disconnected or maybe spacey and out of it. And so for me, I'm more and more bringing in some of that somatic experience of, okay, I got to remember that I have a body or arms and legs or, so sometimes that just means really just the simplest, I check how my shoulders are. When my shoulders are like that, it's a little dorsal for me. So I just offer my system a chance to open up shoulders.
Yeah.
And then I can feel more spaciousness. I can feel more movement. And it sounds like such a small thing, but physiologically, we do a lot with that little shift.
Yeah.
Right. So it absolutely belongs at the top of my list of,
Beautiful.
how am I holding my body in space when I'm in dorsal? And then what is a slight shift that can help my system take one half a rung up on that ladder?
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
I love it.
We mentioned, sorry, Debbie, I didn't mean to interrupt. Just wanted to make sure we get to two more of these questions. We mentioned that there's a sort of an introductory glossary for those that maybe are not, as aware of the polyvagal theory, sort of a brief summary to get people up and running. So these two questions are that we somewhat address that, but of course, I of course can think of other resources that people might want, but I want to hear from you guys. So the person who had initially asked followed up with, is the new book enough to begin knowing about the theory and practice, or do you recommend a previous reading? And then another attendee had asked, is there a way progression that you advise to read to understand polyvagal theory and practice?
Well, I think if you're a clinician and you want to, dive into the theory, I probably still would start with the first book, Polyvagal Theory and Therapy, because it lays the groundwork, and then you could move on any of the ones that come, polyvagal practices or polyvagal exercises, sort of gives you more specific ways. And then I think I think polyvagal prompts would be a lovely thing to bring into your practice and to do with your clients, right? Because once you've brought polyvagal theory into your work and you've helped your clients, create their personal profile map, which is, in the first book, and begin to understand that, the prompts will be an easy way for them to go deeper into beginning to know their nervous system, and which is what you're wanting to do in the therapeutic process. Yeah.
Lisa Johnson asks, is there a theory book we should read? Of course, I think immediately of the Polyvagal Theory, Stephen's first book. Then the Pocket Guide, right?
Pocket Guide.
More gentle introduction into how that,
Yeah.
I don't know that Polyvagal Theory, Dr. Portis's first book, is going to be the gentle introduction.
The Pocket Guide is great.
The Pocket Guide is a great introduction, and of course, then moving that on to further clinical practice, of course, polyvagal theory and therapy.
Because I do agree, it's really nice to know the science underneath it first. And in my writing, I always try to bring the science in a way that's understandable for clinicians. But if you're a sort of a neuroscience nerd like Courtney and I are, Steve's first book is also a beautiful book, and Polyvagal Safety Is that his,
Yeah.
Polyvagal
his
safety,
other
yes.
one? That's
Mhm.
that's a nice one. I mean, you get to feel his writings all come together in one place, and I think those are lovely to read and to hear from the developer in his words, even though they may not be your words and they may not be the words you want to use with your clients. I think it's good to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to remind our attendees that in the chat, there's a link to www.norton.com. You'll see a link, Polyvagal Theory. That is the landing page that has all of our polyvagal offerings to date. And there you can you'll see books that are, what are books for clinicians, both for clinicians and their clients, and books that are, for everyone, right? A client on their own could pick up Polyvagal Prompts and dip their toe in. Deb, glimmers, as you know, they're everywhere.
Oh my gosh,
You brought them
they're
into the
everywhere.
world. So for those that don't know, they've probably heard the term. I have a lot of friends, family members in my personal life. Of course, they know what I do for a living, but there's others. When I mention glimmers, oh, I just saw that in my Instagram feed. I love, et cetera, et cetera. And of course, just trying to keep up with all the wonderful publications that are, spreading the word about it. Could you just let people know what a glimmer is?
Yeah, and there are some glimmer prompts in the Polyvagal Prompts, which is fun. And just to, I will say, somebody sent me yesterday that Oprah has a word of the week thing that she's just come out with, and they interviewed me a long time ago, but glimmer was the word of the week on Oprah's word a couple weeks ago. So everywhere I hear about glimmers more than anything else in my world at the moment. But a glimmer is a micro moment of that place of safety and connection of ventral, a micro moment of ventral. It's just this tiny moment that appears and you feel a bit of okayness. A flavor could be okayness. You could feel joy, feel passion, feel magic, or you simply might feel, yes, for a micro moment. And the beauty of glimmers is that they're not a one and done experience. A glimmer comes in, you stop for a minute, you notice it, right? And then another one comes and they begin to accumulate in your system, and they begin to build your capacity for regulation in a very gentle and yet powerful way. And I think that's the joy of glimmers. The other thing I'll say about glimmers that I always want to say when I talk about them is that they're not a form of toxic positivity. They're not a count your blessings and don't look at your suffering, right? They are an amazing way to understand how your nervous system can so exquisitely hold all of the suffering or the unresolved trauma and find a moment of goodness in the world. Right. So it's this beautiful both and. And in fact, the more you notice glimmers and build the capacity to find your way home to ventral, which is again what Polyvagal Prompts is going to help you do, then the more capacity you have to visit sympathetic and dorsal, which is where your suffering and your trauma lives, and be with it differently. Instead of reliving it, you can review it, reflect on it, be informed by it, and process it differently. So that's the joy of glimmers, right? They're both in the moment amazing experiences, and they build capacity to move through the world differently. Yeah.
I want to ensure our attendees that this was not intentional product placement, but I always have this by my work desk, and this question just occurred to me. So I turned my camera off just for a second to grab it from the other side of my work desk. But as we were speaking, this occurred to me. So this is Deb Dana's polyvagal flip chart, and the reason I bring this to the fore is I was just thinking, Deb, if you had any recommendations to the clinicians that are watching and listening, just thinking about the card deck, the flip chart, and now Polyvagal Prompts, like how maybe a clinician could sort of utilize them. Do you see one adjunct to another? Of course, as we mentioned, a layperson can just pick this up. Clinicians obviously can use it with their clients. I'm not a clinician. I've done several of the prompts.
Oh,
just
good.
the safety and danger lists. That would seem like maybe that seems like an obvious question. When you start writing that list, those are some of the answers were really illuminating to me, as many of the prompts have been. So we know anyone could pick this up and read it, could use as an adjunct to therapy. But I was just curious, maybe more so for the clinicians on that are watching, would you recommend how maybe the flip chart, the decks, now Polyvagal book with Courtney, how they can
I mean,
incorporate each other? Is there a line of like, start with this, go here? I was just curious.
I would have the flip chart, because I think having the flip chart handy, it's a great way to, as you're doing the work, to find the page and use it to illustrate or as an anchor so that clients can stay there. And I did want to say something, now that you brought up the flip chart, that this flip chart and the design of this flip chart, where the front of the front page is erasable. You can write on and erase. And then the back of that page has the clinician notes, is telling you what you need to know in case you've forgotten, or in case you want some other language about what's on the front. That design was Deborah's brilliant creation, right?
My colleague, Deborah Malmed,
Deborah
our
Malmed,
publishing director,
your publishing director,
our fearless leader.
She created that design. And I want to say that out loud, and I want to say that for everybody, because every flip chart nowadays that you find out there in the world is based on Deborah's design. They have all taken Deborah's design. All of our other organizations that we clinicians know about have taken Deborah's brilliant design and are designing their flip charts from that place. And when she came up with that idea, it was so brilliant. And I have heard from so many clinicians that they're so grateful to have on the back what they need to know, and on the front, the client-facing information. So I think the flip chart is a wonderful thing for every office to have. I think the card deck is great, because it's, in the way card decks go, you can choose a section, pick a card, any card, and then focus on that. Clients might pick a card, take it home, come back. That I think is really helpful. And then I think Polyvagal Prompts is going to be, as Courtney said, really great for clients to work between sessions, right? That's really what we're trying to do, is how do we help clients stay engaged with their nervous systems between the hour once a week they're spending with us, right? Because the nervous system never stops. And if they can stay engaged with it and befriending, then the work goes so much more easily, quickly. It just is so helpful to have, home play. My colleague Amber Gray came up with home play, because homework can be a cue of danger. But how can we give our clients home play that keeps them engaged? Because most clients who come to therapy, they're wanting to heal, they're wanting to change, and they really want to feel like they're doing something. And so, polyvagal prompts, the polyvagal, exercises are things for people to do between session, which is so helpful. Yeah.
And back before all these things were published, and what we had was Deb's, we had Dr. Portis's book, we had the what is it called, the Pocket Guide, and then we had Deb's 2018 Polyvagal Theory and Therapy, and that was it. And so I probably half my clients own Polyvagal Theory and Therapy. They're not clinicians, but I had no place to send them.
Right.
And it was great, because even that book is, even though it's like geared toward clinicians, it really is still an invitation to anybody. So yeah, I do have a lot of people who started there before all these other things existed, and so it's really nice to have so many options and resources and
I was thinking
places to start.
Yeah, when you were reading the list of publications, I thought, oh, have I gone overboard? And then, as Courtney was saying, no, because people have different ways of engaging.
Yeah.
They find the one that works for them, clinician, client, doing it together. I think it's really, the more we can offer people options and choice, I think the more they will find their way into befriending.
The clinical applications of Polyvagal Theory book that you and Dr. Porges co-edited, and you have input from all these other clinicians who use different modalities and how they use it and those case studies. So that really applies to a whole other population of clinicians. So they really stand out.
Yeah. I mean, it really is. Polyvagal theory I mean, it's theory of the nervous system. We all have one. And so it's going to go anywhere you want it to go, right? It applies to any kind of clinical practice, to any workplace, any way we're living our lives. We're moving through the world, with our nervous system. And so to understand how to work with it, I think is important. It helps us understand how we're human and do it differently. I think, and that probably, way beyond where we are today, but I think as we each get to befriend our nervous system and come to regulation, that we then take that out into the world and the world can begin to change. And I think our world needs that experience right now. It needs more people who can, yes, dysregulate as we all do, but can find their way back to regulation and then offer that to the people around us. So yeah.
One of my favorite moments in this work was with a client, and there was this big shift and big aha moment of, oh, this is the key to empathy, isn't it?
Love it.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
We all have a nervous system, right?
Common denominator in our human experience. Yeah.
I think that's a perfect place, I think, to wrap up our conversation. Deb, Courtney, this has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for taking the time. I want to thank everyone, of course, most importantly, who's tuned in and to listen to this wonderful conversation. For those of us that follow WW Norton either on Facebook or Instagram or subscribe to our newsletters, we'll be sharing this talk with them, and also it's streaming live on YouTube, and we'll also be sharing that with our newsletter subscribers and get it up on our web pages. And I just want to remind everyone a little bit of housekeeping again, that of course we want you to buy from your local independent bookseller or a chain if you like your chains, whatever your preferred retailers are. But also if you want 20% off, and free shipping, direct from Norton, that link again is here in the chat. And we will also advertise that when we send out this recording. And just another reminder, at www.norton.com/polyvagal theory, you'll find Deb and Courtney's book there, Deb's other offerings, Stephen Porges' other offerings, and other books about polyvagal theory. So again, thank you everyone for attending. Thank you, Deb and Courtney. It's always lovely to see you guys. And we hope to speak to you soon, maybe about another book down the line.